Well, Congressman, thank you very much for joining us.
Thanks for having me, Katie.
First off, what is your reaction to Tish James being indicted?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not one bit surprised, right? I mean, Donald Trump and the White House have fired their way through the Department of Justice till they've arrived at the lowest common denominator, really scraping the bottom of the barrel with, in this case, an U.S. attorney for the Eastern District of Virginia who has precisely zero criminal experience and apparently doesn't care that she's put forward 2 indictments and maybe more to come that will be laughed out of court. There's no question in my mind. I'm not even a lawyer, but Jim Comey is not going to be convicted. I don't think Tish James is going to be convicted. This is, at one level, a bunch of performative noise by the president and illustrates something we know, which is that Donald Trump will say and do anything. It also illustrates something that is a change from Trump version 1.0, which is that he has finally surrounded himself with people who are so sycophantic that they will do anything, regardless of the merits, if it's in the service of earning his praise. Look, I work in an institution, the United States Congress, which the majority in both the House and the Senate they have one mandate. It has nothing to do with the Constitution. It is to make Donald Trump happy. And that's the bit that's a little bit surprising to me.
Really? Really?
Oh, that wasn't a rhetorical, really? No, again, that Donald Trump says and does wild things is no surprise to anybody. And by the way, it's a little bit of a challenge politically, right? Because some of the stuff he says and does is very, very dangerous. Those statements that are characterizing the opposition, my party, as terrorists. I worry now in a way I've never worried before that I may go home to Connecticut and that one of, 100,000 people that heard that decided that I'm a terrorist. And so they're waiting for me at home with a firearm in my garage. That stuff is really, really dangerous. Some of it is just purely performative. When he says, I'm going to run for a 3rd term, the reason he does that is because he knows that it is, yet another shiny thing for my party to chase, that if we're sort of talking about everything that Donald Trump says, at the end of the day, we're talking about nothing. And what we must be talking about right now is the fact that the American people, tens of millions of Americans, are about to lose their health care insurance, so they won't be able to afford it. So, again, every single day there's going to be 10 wild things that we're tempted to be distracted by so that the American people and so that we don't notice that Americans are about to feel an immense amount of economic pain associated with health care costs.
So that is interesting what you're just saying, because I spoke to Brad Lander, the comptroller here in New York, a moment ago, and he kind of got to that same point, which is these things are bad. These things are an abuse of power, but they're also not necessarily what Democrats should be focused on. How do you walk that line? How do you say, I'm not going to be distracted by something that is arguably or critically an abuse of power?
Yeah, no, I mean, that's a great question, Katie. And I'll tell you, it's a tension that I feel every single day because, my party and, frankly, the American people have a lot of different elements of focus. I have constituents who maybe don't worry tomorrow about how they pay the rent. And if they're not worried about the rising cost of their health insurance, they have the room and the luxury to worry much more about the, imposition on legislative powers as articulated in Article 1 of the Constitution. And that's not in any way to say that both of those issues, the economic pain that's being visited by this administration, and, of course, the authoritarian instincts of this administration, they're both desperately serious issues. It just so happens that in politics, in a democracy, there's sort of a Maslow's hierarchy of things that people care about. And for the vast bulk of America today, who really is a little economically anxious, thank you tariffs, thank you to economic policies that are raising the cost of health care, for them, the worry that they may not be able to afford their health insurance is item number 1. And so if you get Jim Himes coming in and saying, do you realize that the judiciary is being compromised? They may care about that, but they don't. Again, you got to talk to people where their pain points are. And those pain points tend to be economically associated. And by the way, it creates a huge amount of cognitive dissonance for somebody like me, because the other stuff is really important too. Climate change, the treatment of immigrants, all of that stuff is important. But again, the art of politics is in speaking to the people on the items that are most immediate to them. And so it creates a huge amount of problems. And by the way, it's why the president says 10 crazy things every single day, because he understands that.
All right, so today's a critical day. A lot of federal government workers got only a partial paycheck today. Military members got their last paycheck. That's the last one until the shutdown ends. You have Russ Vought, as we just put up on the television, saying the reduction in force has begun. So I guess they're saying that thousands of employees will now be laid off. Does this put pressure on Democrats to come back and try to end this shutdown?
You know, I don't think so, Katie. And the reason I say that, and, you know, let me acknowledge right up front that this shutdown is causing an awful lot of people an awful lot of pain. The day it began, I went up to the airport at Windsor Locks, Connecticut, to see off 500 Connecticut National Guardsmen who were deploying to the Middle East. These are not wealthy people, right? And they are not going to get paid on October 15th. So this is causing a huge amount of pain. But in terms of whether it causes us to buckle, wait till the pain of not addressing the expiring Obamacare, the Affordable Care Act subsidies come out. You know, this is going to double and triple people's premiums. And most importantly, again, in a democracy, what people think matters. The reality is, and I hate to talk about this in political terms because we're talking about a lot of real pain here. The reality is that all of the polling indicates that the American people understand in vast majorities that when the Republicans control the House, the Senate, and the White House, that this is not the Democrats' fault. So, yes, this is going to create a lot of pain when federal workers get fired, but I can tell you who it's going to come back around to, and that's Russ Vought and his boss, and that is going to further enrage the American people.
All right, Congressman Jim Himes, thank you so much for joining us. Stay safe.